So I want to do a video actually just going over Hero Hayes' video on anime tourists crash out at Joey the Anime Man as they are in denial about being tourists. Ha 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 ha. The reason why I want to actually cover this is because of the fact that only just the other day I talked about the video in itself, and I don't feel like I was that, like, I saw a comment within less than a minute of the video going up. It's a 20-minute long video talking about Joey's video, and within less than a minute someone was like, oh yeah, I can clearly see you're a hater of Joey, and I'm like, how did you get that from like the first 30 seconds of a video? I mean, unless there's something really, but I'm like, I don't feel like that. I do feel like Joey's video had a lot of interesting points to be brought up, but my only real gripe about it was just he kind of got the word weeaboo and tourist wrong at the start, and then he misunderstood it, then understood it, then misunderstood it, then understood it at the end, and it kind of was just confusing. And afterwards, I actually kind of thought about it a little bit more, and I kind of realized that Joey probably sees the word tourist in the pure sense of what a tourist is just like, and some of my commenters pointed it out, that he probably sees the word tourist as like someone new to anime, like a beginner or a rookie or a noob or kind of thing like that. While a lot of us use the word tourist in the way that he described it afterwards. But I also do think that sometimes he sees the word tourist and weeaboo as kind of the same. And when I thought about it a little bit, I was like, it actually does make sense, because a weeaboo is someone that is somewhat disrespectful to Japanese culture because they're LARPing as a Japanese person and being cringy. And so it is somewhat disrespectful. While a tourist is also very disrespectful because they're interjecting themselves into a community and trying to boot out the original community and saying, yeah, well, this is what anime should be now. And that's where the word tourist is what is used for. But I feel like sometimes it gets used in a sense of like a new person to anime, because he kind of got the interpretation wrong, then got it right, and then he kind of referred to like weeaboos and tourists as the same, and I was like, I don't really quite agree with that. And then he's like, oh yeah, but everyone was a tourist at one point, and I'm like, no. And that's why I think his terminology is a little bit broad, but I will be going over the video by Hirohei because I am genuinely curious what Hirohei has to say about it. And plus he followed me on X today. So just make sure I got the volume right.
So there's a tweet with almost 900 likes saying, Joey, please, no. With people angry.
And by the way, the Weeb crew only recently tried to come after me this week because I called out a lot of like hardcore left-leaning grifters that have been pushing for censorship and are basically just glorified tourists. They've been pushing for a very hard amount of censorship, watering things down, pushing politics where it doesn't need to be in. And they've been trying to use straw man arguments like, oh, well, you talk about politics. Like, yes, I talk about people ham-fisting politics into things like free rem where it shouldn't be in it, right? And me talking about censorship and why I think it's bad and why I think government's getting into trying to censor and control what should and shouldn't be allowed from the medium is wrong, and why we have all these political activists in the sub and the dub scene, which is another topic that we'll be going over soon. It's like them turning around and defending that and saying, well, you're talking about politics too. It's like there's a difference between me making, say, like an analytical video on, and I use an example, like Data Live. While Data Live is a political spectrum into evil capitalism, it doesn't make any sense, and that's what I've been criticizing. So these individuals have been defending really bad faith arguments, and he kind of whined about me apparently wearing the same shirt too often, and I just replied with, use a washing machine. I've got one. It's a magical thing. So I've also heard from other people that he is just a grifter. He just tries and does anything for attention. A lot of anti-tubers contacted me privately, not just one, basically telling me, yes, this dude is the bottom of the barrel. He just snivels around looking for any type of attention. So don't take anything they say serious.
With Joey the Anime Man, getting a response from Rock Solid that says, what did he say wrong? He quite literally hit the head of the nail with this one.
And I do somewhat agree with many of the points that Joey made. I just feel like he was being a little bit too scared to say what he genuinely thought. Like, it felt like he wanted to say something, but he was too scared to say it because he didn't want to call out specific channels. It was just like, dude, just call them out, the anime. And I told people, by the way, in my past videos, that I can guarantee you the Anime Man having more subs probably bugs Joey. He just doesn't want to admit it because I do think he doesn't want to get into like an arms war. He doesn't mind criticizing random viewers and people's opinions, but he's not really the type of person that wants to get into an arms war with other channels. And that's always been the case with him. He doesn't really like to... Because there are cases where it's like, okay, you could have gone like a little bit harder on it, it's like that he doesn't.
So let's roll the clip and see what's got these other people so angry.
You know, much like Christopher Columbus, who went to the Americas, mistook it for India, and called the natives now a term that I'm not allowed to say anymore, and you know, claimed the land for themselves because you know, he was like, well, I discovered it, and all of you guys, this is my place now. And I was like, holy shit, this is exactly what these anime tourists are doing. You know,
he's right. He's actually right on that. And like I said, he has some valid points in that video. It's just some of it was a little bit weird. And I think, like I said, I think he wanted to say something in the video, but he was being really careful on what he wanted to say. Again, I know a lot of people have a lot of criticisms towards him, but I'm just giving fair criticism and fair, like, credit where credit's due. You can't just be blind hatred, which is ironic because I get told that I just blindly hate these people. No, criticism is fair in many of these cases. And I think Joey has definitely said some very stupid things over the years. And I think he's admitted it. He's admitted that he sometimes says really stupid things. I just kind of wish there was a little bit more humility from him. But I think at the same time, I do get why he gets so defensive. Because when you become big enough, the moment you give them anything, they will use it to run with.
Much like...
That's the clip. Wow, that's so offensive. Joey, please, no. I can't believe what you've done. No, I'm kidding. I don't know how people could get mad at that. Well, here's the explanation of the angry people.
We're really just comparing normies getting into anime to... I think you're really trying to stretch that and not understanding, like, Joey's... You're kind of really stretching what he says. Also, a lot of people who call new anime fans tourists also think... okay, yeah. And this was exactly what I just said at the start. Joey wasn't trying to make a political statement there. He was just making a general statement of, like, dumping your flag somewhere and going, yeah, this is my land now, kind of mindset. Now the Weeb Crew is trying to make it political, where it doesn't need to be quite political. Like, Joey's not trying to make it political. I'm actually defending Joey here. Because he isn't. His statement is just more in fun jest of being like, hey, like, someone interforces themselves into a community, plants the flag, calls it their own, boots everyone out, and goes, ta-da! It's simplifying things, but I feel like people are trying to take what Joey said and trying to spin it into some, like, gotcha moment. It's weak, it's terrible, this person has been disingenuous, it's not the first, it won't be the last. Trust me, if you know their history, you know that they generally are just trying to stir, which is ironic. They're just trying to stir drama.
People, we could see these tweets getting 400 likes and 200 likes respectively, give or take. And
like, gatekeeping doesn't really work on... And surprise, surprise, remember when I said about gatekeeping? The people that don't want gatekeeping are the people that you actually want to gatekeep. That's why there are people opposing gatekeeping, because they know that the people wanting to gatekeep are wanting to gatekeep them. And they know that people want to gatekeep them because of how bad they are. That's why they don't want to.
Takes read. We're really just comparing normies getting into anime to the genocide of millions upon millions of people now, aren't we? Also, a lot of people who call new...
Also, I like the way Hirohei reads it. It saves me having to read it with my dyslexic ass. I'm just not going to read things from now on.
Anime fans, tourists, also think Christopher Columbus was a good guy, so have fun squaring that circle. And I guess they weren't done there, because then they added, I guess this warrants repeating since a lot of people don't really know why gatekeeping doesn't really work on Twitter. And another take they had that reads, in order to be a part of a community, you need to be an active participant. But with an algorithm, you're instead just a passive observer. And by nullifying that requirement for active participation, gatekeeping effectively becomes impossible. The algorithm has no gate. Okay.
I don't agree with that. Like, you can be part of a community and still like, this is the problem. People think that to be part of a community, that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. In order to be part of a community, you need to be an active participant, okay? But with an algorithm, you don't have to be part of an algorithm to be an active participant. You could be part of a Discord server. You could be part of a small form site. don't use Reddit. It's a cesspit, which is ironic because these people, by the way, were claiming, not Hero Hey, but the individual in the tweet was trying to claim, along with their tourist friends, were trying to claim I was a Reddit user, which is like, I've literally spent years telling people, do not use Reddit. I want old school forums back where it was all like fragmented, where you could go to a community and just like interact with people. I feel like Discord has become a little bit more like that, but a lot of Discord servers have been hijacked by subreddits, so it's like, And I know some people say, well, why don't you start a Discord server? I do. It's just a Patreon only thing. I don't really want to make it public because I don't want people like this hijacking it. Because Chibi Reviews had a public Discord server. I was a moderator on it. You want to know who begged him to delete that Discord server? Me. Ask him. I begged him to delete it because it was so toxic and so full of people that hated anime, tourists, people that hated him, because it got taken over because it was a public Discord server. Personally, if he ever watched this, which he probably won't, but I would recommend if he ever wanted a Discord server again, use his Patreon, build it into it. I'd help him build it into it. But yeah, I mean, if you want to join my Discord community, that's how. You can do it through YouTube membership or Patreon. It's either or either. I have both options there. If you hate Patreon but you don't mind YouTube, or you hate YouTube, you don't mind Patreon. I've looked at other options because I know some people are like, well, why have so many options? It's because a lot of people have preferences. But again, off tandem here. In order to be part of a community, active participant, but with an algorithm, you're instead a passive observer. That's just false. You can join any subreddit. You can join any Facebook group. Not that I think Facebook's that good either, but you can join forum sites. You can join even on X, right? There are little like communities that you can join. You don't have to be some 100k, 50k, 200, 500k follower account. You don't need to be some massive entity. You don't need to be an AniTuber with any large amount of following. 5k, 10k, less than that subscribers. You don't need to be some massive monolithic voice in the community to have some form of community around you and enjoy anime. This is what I hate about these individuals, that it's more about ego and less about just generally enjoying anime. I tell you right now, if I had like a couple of K subs, I'd still enjoy it. I like the money because I like to buy more big titty anime figures, but I just generally enjoy talking about anime. One of the reasons why I've started to grow hating to anime stuff is because everything has just turned into an ego flex, and you have to force your opinion down people's throats. Again, to be part of an active community, you do not need to be some big voice. Just join a small community. Chat with 10 other people, 5 other people. That's good enough. You don't have to be a big voice. This is an ego.
Algorithm has no gate. Okay, so this person is conflating normies getting into anime with anime tourists, and there are some huge differences.
There is.
So we'll talk about this really quick, spend like 30 seconds on this. A normie getting into anime can be totally fine as long as they are genuine about it, and they are not trying to change the medium or the pre-existing fan base. Little caveat being that regardless, fandoms do tend to get worse once they reach a certain size, so that's always something to keep note of. But as for the anime tourist, though, well, that's basically like a Twitter cop, which is a term that I made up. The Twitter police, the Twitter cop, it's like the anime version of the Twitter police. But I'll define this all much more right now. So first of all, anime tourists tend to only get into anime because they view it as a trendy thing to do nowadays. A lot of them don't actually have a genuine interest or like.
I don't want to pause him too much because I want him to finish his point, but this just reminded me, I got a comment just today in one of my videos basically yelling at me because I wasn't telling people what to think in my reviews. Because in my analysis channel, what I try to do is I try to give an opinion, right? I try to say what I like about something, what I dislike about something, and try and weigh up the positives and negatives. I don't like just making a pure hate video. And I sometimes have done those, but I try to avoid them because I don't like doing them. Whenever I review something, I try to weigh up the positives and the negatives, and I try to present it as like a, here, take what you want and go with it. But I don't like the whole idea of like where things are going, and I feel like I'm going off tandem now, of just like forcing injection opinions and being like, oh, you have to like this because this is the current trendy thing to like, and oh, you have to hate this thing because this is the current trendy thing to hate. Like, I like to just let people like absorb things the way they are. But it was one of those where they were telling me that I had to be like all negative, negative, negative. And they're like, oh, I hate all these shows and there's not that many. And I'm like, why are you watching anime? Like, if you hate all these shows so much and you're trying to force me to be more negative, which is ironic because I get told I'm too negative, I was like, then why are you watching it? And then I realized as I was reading the comment, I was like, oh, you're just watching anime because it's the trendy thing to do. That's it. And you're trying to tell me to force my opinion of anime is bad on everyone else. It was just like, it really does. Like, not to go too off tandem with what Hirohei is saying, is that it feels like a lot of anime community, or some parts of the anime community, a large section of them hate anime, but they want to be part of the community because they don't want to be left out. It's like having 6 friends, 5 of them love anime, you don't like it, and you're just kind of like forcing yourself to like it, and then you just kind of start getting crabby at everyone, go, yeah, but that was shit. It's just like, then don't watch it. Like, again, it's fine to watch an anime and say, you know what, I didn't quite like it, and then leave it at that. But there's this constant need to just trash and hate on anime all the time now. And it's like it's become cool to hate it. And these are the very same people that are trying to interject themselves, say everything is problematic, everything is bad, everything should be changed. And then when it all gets changed to what they want, they don't even like it still anyway, and no one else likes it anyway because it's gone to shit. It's like what a lot of games are turning into.
For the medium. So by default, that makes them fake people. We had a huge influx of these sort of individuals during the lockdown period around like 2020 and 2021. Then on top of that, the main thing is how they constantly cry about how offensive anime and manga is and how problematic Japan is. And they always try to come off like victims and demand that the medium change. It's...
I feel like Asmongold sometimes. I did a reaction on another one, and it was really funny because the guy replied to my reaction video, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I really love the way like you paused, said what I said, and then unpaused, and then I said it." And I'm like, "Yep." I have a really bad habit of it. Like, I start to like hear something, and I'm like, I start to think, "Oh, this is what I think too," and then it's like I say it, and then they say it, and it's like, "Oh." I need to try and like say something different, but it's hard when you actually agree with someone that's saying the exact same thing.
Very pathetic behavior. And I'll repeat one thing here just to be sure that we're on the same page. If you're a new anime fan and you're genuine about it, you're not just trend hopping, and you're not trying to be offended by everything, well, you're not what we're talking about here then, so don't worry. I got more to say about all this tourist stuff as well.
And that's something I've been saying, because a lot of people are like, oh, you're just trying to gatekeep everyone out. No. If you're just an anime fan, you're just entering, there's the door, welcome in. Come on in, enjoy the medium. The people we want to gatekeep is exactly the people that are trying to do exactly what Hirohei explained.
But first, there's also a response that says clip the full context next time, so let's take a look at this next clip. It's 1 minute and 12 seconds long. Here we go.
But I remember seeing a comment on like a TikTok or a YouTube video or something where somebody called these anime tourists or at least this new rise or era of anime tourists as the Columbus era of anime. You know, much like Christopher Columbus, who went to the Americas, mistook it for India, and called the natives now a term that I'm not allowed to say anymore. And
I should have realized it was taken out of context as well, because I'd watched Joey's video. I watched it pretty thoroughly. But at the same time, when the original out of context clip, I was like, it's not really that bad. Like, I knew what Joey was meaning, and it probably I knew because I somewhat remembered vaguely what the original context was. So it is good that Hirohei points out the full context here, but I'll continue.
Claim the land for themselves because, he was like, well, I discovered it, and all of you guys, this is my place now. And I was like, holy, this is exactly what these anime tourists are doing. They're like coming to these unfamiliar lands, planting their flag in the soil, and going, we own this land now. Out of the way, previous people. Your opinions are irrelevant now because you are old and your time is up and you don't know what good anime is anymore. But at the same time they claim all of this, they don't respect the history of the medium, they don't respect how the evolution has happened, they don't respect the cultural significance behind the evolution of the medium. They just look at it as something like cool and pop and fun.
Bro, these people don't even respect themselves. Have you seen the sort of people we're talking about? Like, respect is not something that they are very familiar with, but they certainly demand that you respect them, which is quite hilarious, really. Now, look, it's good that Joey is talking about this stuff, but I do find something rather comedic, and that is specifically that on Trash Taste, of which Joey is a host on, if you don't know. I think probably everyone watching this video is familiar with this. I'm hoping and assuming, but on Trash Taste, Connor has been on air multiple times saying the exact sort of rhetoric that
Yes, And I've called it out multiple times, and Joey has gotten upset at me calling it out. Yes. They've never named me directly, but for those that don't know this, some of you might if you follow me on X, there was a point where Connor was calling out Spy Family, and he was basically just trying to belittle the show because the chick, the main female protagonist, is sort of living that mum life, like taking care of a kid, you know, cooking in the kitchen kind of thing. And Connor was just kind of like dragging on it, going on and on about how it's shit, blah, blah, blah. And I used Joey's own words from one of his own videos recently at that time, basically saying that it was just cool to hate Spy Family. And I kind of at the end called Connor a bit of a douchebag because, or actually I called him a twat, to be exact. I remember exactly the word. I think I called him a twat. And they found out about it, and they talked about it, but they didn't show the tweet. They didn't name the person that made the comment. But everyone was like, oh, yeah, we know. And they got really angry, like all three of them. And they visibly, I saw the faces, and I was like, holy, they were mad. And they were trying to say that I was bullying them, and that I sent them personal attacks. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I called Connor a twat, but being that Joey has said probably far worse in his videos about his own fans and stuff, I'm like, again, in Australia, like just calling someone a twat is just like calling someone a tosspot, or I don't know, I can't say certain words because YouTube gets a little bit touchy about it, but it's just like a basic, like just like calling someone a douchebag. It's in a very like light sense. And they were like, this is a personal attack. And I'm like, for someone that's apparently lived in Australia, you would really think Joey would understand a little bit of that like terminology, but it kind of really feels like Joey has very thin-skinned at times. And I generally feel out of the three of them in that podcast, Connor has no love for anime. He's just there because he has connections. And I've heard from inside sources that the only reason why he kind of gets invited to a lot of stuff is that he just has inside sources. And he's just friends with people that are really like high up on that food chain. Whether that's true or not, take it with a grain of salt, but it's what I've heard.
Twitter cop anime tourist people have also said, so that's a little bit funny. But to be fair, that...
And yeah, I do think the thing is that Joey has acted in, and I saw one comment in my video talking about it, and they were like, you know, Joey talks about tourists, but he has become more like a tourist than anyone else. Like, he is definitely pushing down that route. And to be honest, some of the things that he's said over the last couple of years, only the last 5, have definitely felt very tourist-like. I just think Joey might be starting to have a bit of self-reflection, and rather than admitting it publicly, maybe he's looking at himself and going, hey, maybe I have gone down the wrong path, because I've watched his content since before 50k subs. And trust me, a lot of his takes, if you looked at who he was then and who he is now, he would have called himself out. He would be criticizing himself from then to here. And I feel like maybe he's starting to realize that maybe he went down the wrong path and he became too jaded. And it could be for a variety of different reasons. Content creation is very stressful. It's very belittling. It's just, it can be a shit career to choose, and it can make you very jaded and bitter. I've been like that sometimes, where I've just gotten to a point of like weeks and weeks and weeks of just people just like whining about the dumbest of things. And like, I'd show it to my friends, I'd show it to other content creators, I'd show it to my own fans, and I'd say like, is this true? And they just most of them just go no. Like 99% would go no, and it's always at like 1%, but it's that 1% that really gets on your nerves. And maybe that's what made Joey the way he is, where he's become very bitter and angry. And maybe he's starting to come out of that, because he seems like he has a bit more passion for anime again. I'm trying to have hope. This is a thing. People say that I'm just some angry hater. I like to pretend I am a little bit, but I try to give people the benefit of the doubt, and I try to have hope in the goodness in people. And I have some hope that maybe Joey might come out of this sort of tourist elitist phase and actually become like a genuine actual anime fan again, and lead us into a more better situation, because his voice is quite large, whether you like it or not. He's a large voice in the community. When he talks, people listen. I just think also he's starting to upset some of the very people that he's kind of fostered for a while, which is that very hard left tourist grifting community.
It's Connor, and this is Joey. So of course, 2 different people, albeit on the same show. But I digress. That's a little bit amusing. The second thing I find amusing is that Joey's just now talking about this in the grand old year of 2025, when the rise of anime tourists really began to proliferate in 2020 and 2020.
Yeah, it has. And I've seen people say, oh, but anime tourists have been happening for ages. Yes, there's always been tourists. There's always been those influx waves. But 2020 to 2021 was the biggest and currently the biggest wave of tourist influx that we have ever had so far. It was monolithically massive. And I know that because I can see the analytics on my own YouTube channels. Trust me, this channel is struggling to rebuild itself because I had so many tourists flood in. I massively grew, did really prosperous, and then a lot of them just quit. And so I'm having to rebuild a lot of that audience back up again because of that which is why I've had to change some of the content, change the editing, the thumbnails, like just little things, because the audience has drastically changed because of this influx. But there is still a lot of those tourists still left around, and it's kind of like trying to weed them out. So
and that was like the height of it around 2021 in my opinion. It's not as bad now as it was then.
We still get the odd wave here and there. I think Dan brought in a bunch of new ones as well, but it's just that was really bad back then. That's where everything did. We're still dealing with the repercussions from it. And that's why I feel like people think it's more now than before. It's like, no, it started there, but it's really just, it's been an ongoing issue. And I think also because of the political tug of war between left versus right, you add in all of that into a pot, it's been pure chaos.
In my opinion, it's still pretty dang bad though. But like, it's not as terrible as it was. You know, for example, we used to see every other day a tweet with like 50,000 to 100,000 likes complaining about My Hero Academia. And
I mean, if you've watched Hero Hayes content long enough, which I have, I remember all the times going from like 2020, 2021, 2022, where there were just people on X just like saying the dumbest takes on the planets. And they would get like, 50, 100K likes. And it was just like the most tourist takes on the planet. And it became really big issue around that time. And I remember Hiro Hey covered a lot of it. Rev Said Desu covered a lot of it. I've seen Chibi Reviews cover a bunch of it. Like those different types. So it's why I remember these kinds of things. Because I've seen a lot of people go, oh, no, it wasn't. It's just like, no, it was. And I think a lot of people just have very short memory. I still remember when Shield Hero, the Rise of the Shield Hero, massive amounts of controversy from left-leaning media outlets attacking the show. And I talked about it recently in a video pointing out that that's what happened back then. And people are like, oh, actually, that drama wasn't really that bad. And I was like, Hiro Hey was one of the people covering it. Chibi Reviews was one of the people covering it. Red Set Desu covered it. I was probably the only one that didn't cover it. Actually, I didn't cover it at the time. I was just doing reviews and light novel stuff on it. And it was kind of funny because when I criticized Anime News Network a couple of years ago, an individual that basically made a hit piece video on me on Christmas Day claimed in his comment section that I covered the Shield Hero drama. And I was like, no, I didn't. And they were like, oh, yeah, I've been watching Espiritu for a long time and I'm a fan of his. And I'm like, no, you're not. I hate when people, by the way, personal gripe before I play the video, I hate when people claim they're a fan of yours and they clearly demonstrate they're not a fan of yours. That's the issue with the anime community. Oh, I'm a fan of anime, knows nothing about anime, is a complete tourist.
Saying that Horikoshi should have his life ended because, oh my gosh, he depicted Momo like this or whatever.
Oh, remember all the shipping wars? Gravity Girl and Blood, I just call it Blood Girl. People like forcing their headcanon ships, like, oh, they're a lesbian couple, they have to be together. And it's like the author constantly hinting at Gravity Girl and Deku being together, and everyone's like, oh my god, that's so wrong, oh no, they can't be together, the writer is evil. It's like, oh my god. And yeah, all the fan service, like the outfits where she could pull stuff out of her chest, because that's like the easy place that she could pull like items out because of creating. And people are like, that's too fan service. And you're like, okay, where do you pull it out? The arm? Like, that's a bit awkward. Like, okay, gut, nah, it's too fan service. It's like, there was always things to whinge about.
If you guys are not familiar with this stuff, it was so pathetic. There was also like tweets that were showing Momo being like skinnier in the anime than in the manga, and all these weirdos were like, oh my gosh, this is so fat phobic, how could they do this? Getting offended at everything. Oh my gosh, Endeavor's having a redemption arc. Oh my gosh, send all the death threats to Horikoshi, in which many of them did. That was another huge situation. Let's not forget what happened with All for One's doctor's original name, though, Shiga Maruta, when they also got mad at that, saying, oh my gosh, this is a reference to Imperial Japan and Unit 731. This is so offensive. He needs to change this. And it's like, yeah, he named the villain doctor after horrific things that doctors had done in history. Like, that is the point. And they got so offended that Horikoshi, if I recall, actually even changed the name of that character. One caveat on that controversy, though, it was also people in South Korea and China getting offended at that name.
I remember that too.
But they were still missing the
Burning
point
books.
of like why he named the doctor that, which was a pretty fitting name, really, for the point that he was making. But of course, there were also Westerners getting offended at it too, saying he needs to change it, X, Y, and Z. And let me just emphasize, though, that the anime tourists and the Twitter police, they are 99% of the time Westerners, not people from South Korea or China. The Shigemura thing was an outlier in that sense. And then, of course, there was all the Uzaki-chan stuff, all these people getting offended at Uzaki-chan and being like, oh, I need to fix her. Oh, I made her fatter and more Western-looking. It's so much better. Like, oh my gosh, dude. It was the most pathetic stuff. I'm not trying to, like, rehash everything. These are just a few examples of, like, how...
He's got really good memory of all that drama. Because, yeah, there was a lot of drama over that. Like, saying that she looked too young, her gazongas were too big, we need to make her fatter, we need to shrink the chest size down, she has to be taller. It was so stupid. And then there was also the teasing one. I forget what it is. That was that one as well.
How bad it used to be in like 2020 through 2021-ish, give or take, maybe into 2022 a little bit. And of course, like I acknowledge, these anime tourists, they still exist. It's still bad. My point is that it's just probably not as bad as it used to be. So again, it's kind of funny that Joey's now talking about this all these years later. But like I said, I mean, I'm glad the guy is. No shade, no problem with that. It's just sending me down memory lane a little bit right now. The last point I'll make really quick, I should have mentioned this sooner, my bad, but the last thing on that note about the prior years is that it was also worse before because that was the height of lockdown. And there was an influx of these anime tourists at that point in time, as well as that Twitter itself was just infested with people like that, getting offended at everything. And these people are still out there, of course, but was a bit worse back then. Anyways, you get the point. So we've got this response, who seems to be agreeing with the offended individual, person mad at Joey. And he says, let's be for real. The problem isn't so-called tourist. No, the problem's tourists.
It is tourists. And I generally find people that don't have a problem with the tourists are the ones being the tourists. But I digress. We'll continue.
But rather people trying to bully new people into an outdated culture.
By the way, I'm not reading it. I'm waiting for Hirohei to read it because I'm like, yeah, if he's going to read it, I don't have to read it. I don't have to use my brain power. And I was like, sitting there waiting. I was just like, when he read the first part, I was like, I bet you, when I read up to that tourist part, I was like, I bet you he's a tourist. Read the second part. Oh, so he's a tourist. Again, it's exactly that. Oh, tourist isn't the problem. We just need to change this outdated culture. So you're a tourist.
An outdated culture, this person says, about the hardworking mangakas and the hardworking animators and all the talented individuals in Japan making this wonderful medium that we love. Anime, manga, of course. He goes on. I understand that the culture was made by folks that were more in the dark in overall pop culture / society. Thus why they're hostile. Are you... What? Dude, my IQ went down in real time reading that. What kind of weird take is this? You're saying they're in the dark. Bro, their culture is literally different than whatever you're talking about.
I think it's kind of insensitive the way the West, and especially these individuals, are constantly trying to force their culture down other people's throats, but then they complain about how, oh, our culture was so, like, special, people ruined our culture and blah, 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 while they proceed to do the very same thing. They complain about, like, imperialism and all this other stuff, but they do exactly the things that they complain about. Don't like tourists. It's not tourists that are the problem, proceeds to out themselves as a tourist. And I'm somewhat reading this, not trying to read it, and I'm like, okay, they're gonna...
You're someone, I get it, bro. You're someone who wants to be offended at everything and call everything problematic, and you want to change things that you're not even a part of. Meanwhile, those people that you're mad at are making art, and they're passionate about it, and they're making wonderful anime, they're making wonderful manga, they've been highly successful. But here's Lion, or whatever his name is, Lion, whatever, over on Twitter, trying to lecture all of us about how this stuff should actually be.
Which is, by the way, the pure definition of what a tourist is. And that's the irony. Let's be real, let's be for real, the problem isn't so-called tourists. Proceeds to complain about the anime culture. Proving that they're a tourist. They don't think the problem is tourists because they are the tourist.
Bro, Your ego is immense, and it has no right to be. Your take is terrible. And so we get a response that says, you aren't a fan, you are a hostile outsider that wants to change medium that isn't yours and that you don't really understand. Speaking of memory lane a few minutes ago, we've got B-Rabbit over here, who's also offended at Joey's take. He's offended at people being called anime tourists. If you don't know B-Rabbit, or maybe your memory needs a little bit of jogging, this was someone who was occasionally around in the background of the whole Kick Vic, I Stand With Vic situation, because this was like Monica Real's top moderator who constantly shills for Monica Real and all the corrupt English VAs. Like, if there was ever a SAG after a bootlicker achievement, this man would be speedrunning to try and get that achievement. That's the sort of person we're talking about here, who's also offended at the word tourist or anime tourist. Here's a comment.
The people that are most offended by the word tourist are generally tourists.
Talking about what I mentioned earlier, that being how lockdown was such a large contributor to the influx of these anime tourist weirdos. And this person says, I swear, man, these COVID weebs, well, COVID weebs.
And one thing I also noticed, I'm going back down memory lane. I remember when these individuals were coming after me claiming that I was a Reddit user. I said to a friend that was looking at this, and they're like, wow, they really like hate you, and they're really trying to like associate you with Reddit. And I'm like, yeah, because they are Reddit users. They want everyone to be associated with them so that they can try and protect themselves from the fact that people call them tourists, people call them Reddit users, because they know it's toxic. And also notice how it's Reddit/Discord, because a lot of subreddits got their own Discord servers now. It's one of the reasons why I've distanced myself from a lot of the Discord servers and subreddits. Well, not really subreddits, because I don't use Reddit, but the Discord servers that are connected to the subreddits. I've distanced myself from that, because as much as I don't use Reddit, I still was keeping an eye on a lot of the Discord servers connected to them, and sort of using them as like a news way of like, oh, what new manga chapters are coming out, what new announcements of new sequels and stuff, or light novel stuff. But it just got to the point where a lot of them turn into political activists ones. And I've got specific names in my mind of certain Discord servers that are connected to those subreddits that are like very hard politically leaning. And it's like to the point where their own display, like the display picture for the Discord server, the moderators' bios, names, everything is just like push politics very hard. And that's one of the reasons why I try to steer away from Reddit, because it is just an absolute cesspit. But these individuals try to really force the whole idea of, oh, you're just a Reddit user, so that they can try and make you one of them, so that they can then use it as a shield for criticism on themselves. But the reality is yeah, they are tourists, they are Reddit/Discord individuals or moderators or whatever, and they don't like being called out for it.
COVID weaves will spout the most Reddit/Discord thing you can imagine, and then go straight nuclear when they get called out for it. This account screams tourist. Then we got another response to the OP with sob, a caption, tourist, gatekept, saying one. It's an exaggerated analogy based in truth, talking about what Joey said.
That's what I said at the start. It's an exaggerated analogy. Yeah. Joey wasn't being quite literally saying this is a one-to-one. He was kind of using a very like stretch the analogy kind of thing, because it can be hard to come, and plus it was based on a comment too. But he is right, yeah, it is people just flagging their flag, and that's why I say tourists have been around well before 2020. It's just become much worse, but also those same channels and pages and stuff have become a lot more boisterous, because they've got the tourist community back behind them more, so they've grown a little bit and think, oh well, we've become big now, we can like overshadow a lot of other channels. This is one of the things, and I've actually heard from other inside sources from other AniTubers and other fans that apparently a lot of these accounts are getting really scared of me, because I've suddenly just like, I'm just like a quiet like channel that was just news, stuff like this, and now suddenly I'm like, you know what, I'm fed up. Like if my hobbies are going to be destroyed by these people, fine, I'll start calling them out. And so now they're getting scared, because a lot of channels like mine are just getting fed up and starting to call them out, and more people are rallying behind us, and they're apparently panicking. They're like sweating bullets, where they're just freaking out going, oh god, there are more people rallying behind them than rallying behind us, because more people are getting fed up of this. And even some tourists are becoming on our side and realizing, oh yeah, I was in the wrong. But there are still a lot of tourists that are very built on censorship, and everything is problematic.
In that clip. 2, he's right. 3, anime tourists are not welcome and get the heck out of our hobby. 4, gatekeeping your hobbies is always based and correct. They seem to disagree. The OP saying, unless you actually have some sway and influence in the industry, you have basically no...
And This is why they're getting scared. This is why they're getting scared. Because they value everything based on followers. They base everything on subscriber numbers. They base everything on the influence within the community. Which is why these individuals desperately want to rally together and start bullying other channels. And I've been told by other AniTubers, other content creators, that that is exactly what they do. They collectively come together and they try and bully you out of the community. They try and gatekeep, which is ironic because they say gatekeeping is bad, because they want to stop people from exposing them for the fact that they are tourists. This is it. Unless you actually have some sway and influence in the industry, you have basically no ability to gatekeep anyone. Yes, they do. The community can come together as a whole. And these people do have the ability because they can rally behind people that do have influence and give those people more influence and more power. Which is why I say support those that are calling this stuff out. Leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe to these channels, support them. And that's why I'm trying to support other channels that are calling this stuff out, like Monta Sensei. Because this is exactly the issue going on. They are trying to rally their troops together to try and force censorship, to force this whole everything is problematic, everything needs to be made political. And when we start calling it out, they freak out. They're getting scared. Now you see why. Exactly, it illustrates the point that I said about why they're getting scared of other channels like mine that are suddenly just waking up out of a long slumber and going, you know what? You want to destroy my hobby? Let's have a war. Because they know they're not going to win it. Which is why they're trying to keep all of us silent. Or silence us.
No ability to gatekeep anyone. A lol. Response is, backlash from a community is more than enough to gatekeep. They say, not really. People can still continue to watch and talk about anime, lol, even if people are mad at them online.
And this is kind of the mindset. They're trying to basically tell you to just shut up, don't talk, don't complain, just consume. Let us be the voice because we know what's best. They don't want people to start calling them out.
And then this response says, we're not talking about people who simply watch and talk about anime. It's when they demand changes in the medium or purport to understand more about the medium than those who are already long part of it. And yes, so long as they keep doing it, we will keep gatekeeping. Gatekeeping explained. Join the hobby, change the hobby. Difference. The OP responded once again, saying, gatekeep them from doing what? You're not preventing them from doing anything. You're not the one deciding what anime gets made. In order to gatekeep, you need to own the gate, and we as Western fans don't.
That's just factually incorrect, especially when a lot of big influencers in the anime, like a lot of content creators in the influence, get interviews, they have connections. I mean, for God's sake, Joey, Gigit, Connor, they all have connections, particularly Gigit and Joey. Both of them have connections. They both live and they've worked with Netflix. Even Mother's Basement has worked with Netflix. So yes, they do have influence because they're large content creators. What you're trying to do is you're trying to shut down anyone that has the potential to go against your narrative and hope that they don't grow big enough because you're scared. Gatekeep them from what? It's like, when the community rallies together and starts calling this stuff out, and this is the thing, if this wasn't true, by the way, if this wasn't true, then why is Netflix, why is Crunchyroll, why is Sony, why is Katakawa all come out and said that we need to make shows that appease to a Western audience? Why have studios actively said that, oh, we may need to make changes ahead of time to appease to a Western audience? Because the Western audience does now have a say in the anime culture. And that's exactly the point that we're trying to point out, is that we don't want that because the Western audience is hijacked by a bunch of tourists and people that want to push censorship and call everything problematic. So his own point is destroyed with facts and evidence because the very producers, the very publishers, the very industry people at the top have stated otherwise. So he's just factually incorrect.
Over the other person, Ruki says, cool, we're not talking about making anime. As actual fans of the medium, we can ostracize posers from the community. I like the use of poser there. That's very fitting.
I use that word quite a lot because I don't really like the word tourist. I like the word poser more.
From the community to let them know they are not welcome. That's what it means to gatekeep. We'll take a look at a few more responses here. Literally nothing he said was wrong. Anime community pre-2020 hard clears current anime community. It's not even close. Tourists are a plague. Plain and simple. Get them out. Well, let me know what you think about this, though, these anime tourists and what Joey had to say and all that stuff. Curious to see what you got to say about it all in the comments, and thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed my coverage, please consider liking and subscribing. Appreciate you.
I will leave a lovely like because I'm such a gentleman. But yes, I agree with Joe. I agree with Hero Hate. And I've said all my points that I need to say throughout the video. Don't need to drag it on any longer. We need to gatekeep harder. We need to call these people out more because that is why they're getting scared. That is why they're starting to get more frantic. They're starting to lash out, flail about because they know they are being exposed for what they are. Posers, hypocrites, and tourists. Continue to fight that good fight. Because if we don't, those are the people that get the influence, and they do not deserve it at all. Again, if you like this video, hit the like, subscribe, consider, if you haven't, hitting like on his video as well, and I'll see you beautiful nerds in the next video.